Dear students, this is Dr. N. Venkatachalapathi, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. I am going to discuss on drop forging. What is drop forging? It comes under the metal forming or mechanical working of metals. What are the important concept of drop forging, and what are the various components which can be produced by this drop forging process, and especially what are the advantages, limitations, and some applications specifically by applying this drop forging. We will discuss in detail about this drop forging. So look at in this outline of the presentation. Mainly I'm going to discuss on the drop forging overview. So that means a forging is a technique, or it is a metal forming or mechanical working of metals where the 100% of raw material can be effectively utilized. There is no wastage of the material. The negligence, that wastage of the material is very negligible, or it almost all zero. Okay, and coming to this drop forging comes under either it may be a hot forging or cold forging. In that variety of process are there. That is what hand forging process, machine forging, and drop forging. And I'm going to give a complete outline of the drop forging. What is the history of this drop forging? What is the need for going for this drop forging? Especially the components like spanners, adjustable wrenches, and some of the connecting rods. All these come made up of this drop forging technique. So even though it is a traditional process, some advanced techniques has been introduced for doing this process. And also coming to the classification of the drop forging, manually, semi-automatic, or fully automatic, and how you can able to produce the components like spanners and some of the adjustable wrenches and screwdrivers, etc. Coming to these advantages and limitations and applications of this drop forging, we'll discuss in detail one by one. Let us see the basic introduction of the drop forging. So when the student here, you can focus on the how will done this drop forging process, and what are the different parts, or some of the name of the some parts to be used in this drop forging, and what type of machine, either presses, how much tonnage of presses can be introduced here, and how do you perform this process with respect of some good quality, and all those things we will going to discuss in detail. So in general, the term drop forging can be defined as it is the process of shaping the metal. It is the process of shaping the metal and increasing its strength, even by performing this dropping of the machines. Only you can dropping of the machines, how we will transform, we have to change it, the shape and size. Okay, so that is why drop forging is a process of shaping the metal and increasing its strength. So almost here the ferrous and some of the non-ferrous metals has been widely used for this drop forging. In most of the cases, the forging, some of the important terminology, let us discuss one by one. There will be one upper die. So there will be, this is called one upper die. And forged against a heated workpiece positioned on a stationary or lower. This is called stationary die or lower die, and above the stationary or lower die we can keep the workpiece. That is, heated workpiece can be kept above the lower die, and whenever this upper die move through help of a ram, okay, rammer or ramming, okay, if the upper die or hammer is dropped suddenly, if upper die, or we can also call it the hammer, suddenly dropped, and by applying the pressure in that workpiece, it will change the shape of that die, and what are the required size can be obtained in this drop forging process. So this is how we will perform a drop forging in action process. So in this case, there will be one annual, above that annual lower die, and there will be upper die. So the heated work is kept in the lower die, and there will be a ram. So ram can be suddenly fell it down. So like that, you can put some droppings. Sudden at the distance, you can able to keep it. So due to that, it will changes in the shape and size. That is what a simple fundamental definition of a drop forging. Drop forging is the process of shaping the metal in a required shape, and also it will increase its strength. Strength also, not only strength of mechanical properties and impact strength and toughness and hardness also can be improved. Almost all the forging process, there will be two dies are there. One is the upper die and another one is the lower die, which is a stationary. Above the lower die only you can able to keep the workpiece, and that workpiece will be heated to above its recrystalline temperature, because it is a hot working process where the metal can be heated to above its recrystalline temperature. Then you can able to perform the ramming or sudden dropping of the die, that upper die, so that the changes in the shape and the size easily performed in this process. Now look at, these are the some history of drop forging, where it has been existed, when it has been existed. Look at the art of drop forging technique dates to at least 4000 BC, before Christ, and earlier only. So it is not a recent manufacturing process or technique. So it has been developed during 4000 BC, before Christ is still earlier only. Okay, so how that is why in any hot forging of the metals all began the land of Mesopotamia. So in that country, land of Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates, bronze and iron went through the drop forging process by the early man to produce the hand tools, weapons of the war. So during that war, and some of the jewelry ornaments also can be done this forging process, the drop forging process. Look at in this three-dimensional diagram explanation of the how we can perform this drop forging. So there will be a you can see the annual. Above the annual you can able to keep the lower die, and above that you can keep the workpiece, and there will be upper moving die. The here lower die which is at the stationary, this will be at stationary, and upper die only which will move up and down, and some ram due to sudden opening and closing, sudden opening, some dropping can be done obviously. So wherever that shape, whatever the shape of the die shape, either a square or rectangular or polygonal or a hexagonal or any type of shape of the die, that type of form you can able to develop. Okay, and this is what this process almost all 4000 before Christ and earlier it has been introduced to. Now some little bit techniques, instead of manually they can able to use some semi-automatic and some fully automatic and some other important technique to be developed and used for this drop forging process. And apart from this, here you can see in the first case there will be a lower die, upper die, the workpiece, heated work is kept here, and the here there is a motion of the ram not done. So in the second case, the ram can be started, suddenly it will fell on the workpiece, suddenly it is a one rectangular or one square piece. When you suddenly ram will be occur, it will changes it the shape into a some rectangle, square to be a rectangle. Again you can able to use, it will enlarge. So like that some changes in the shape and size. Obviously this drop forging process by the early man to produce some hand tools. Usually they can do some hand weighted tools, some weapons of the war. So there will be a Second World War and so many weapons to be created, and some jewelry equipments and traditional things also they can able to perform this drop forging process. The only thing is it comes under the either open die forging or closed die forging. Generally, when you wanted to have a accuracy and some good dimensional accuracy components can able to produce, obviously we need to generate, we need to have some uh, closed die forging. So that's what some accuracy can be improved. Open die forging means suddenly it may change, sudden pressure, sudden force dropping of that ram. What will happen? Some changes is the position. So even for that also you need some support for the animal, the fixation of that stationary die also. So this is the another important concept to discuss in the history of the drop forging. Now let us see the what is the need, what is the need or usage of the drop forging. So especially most probably in traditional cases only a simple shaped machines can be used. You can see it is I hope more than 1,000 ton capacity of the dropping of the that press, dropping of the that what you call the this rams, how we can able to drop of the ram. So in general this type of equipment not only in India, it more available in the abroad. Some Australia, some Japan, some countries they can able to use all these things because it can be heated to above its recrystalline temperature. Obviously, it is handling of the material is somewhat difficult, automated. So the once it has been get red hot at stage, then it can achieve the above its recrystalline temperature. What will happen? You can handle properly through cranes and all, then you can able suddenly the ram can be dropped in, requirement of the size and shape can be obtained. So look at the simple important usage of the drop forging is a drop forging is a manufacturing or forging process. So here the term why it is called a manufacturing. The term manufacturing can be defined as it is the process of converting raw material into a finished product with the subsequent steps. That is a general definition. So even the forging also comes under the manufacturing process, but here only whatever the amount of raw material can be taken into the consideration, the same amount of the final component and final shaped component has been obtained. So that is why in this manufacturing process there is no wastage of the material. For example, if you take in metal casting process, there is a different steps to be formed, making the pattern design and mold making and mold cavity preparation, hand molding or machine molding, and lot of defects also can be obtained in that casting process. But in the case of this drop forging comes under the mechanical working or metal working process, where by hammer is lifted and when dropped into a heated piece of the metal to reshape it into a shape of the die and tool. So what are the shape of the die? A die may be either it is a rectangle die, the same shape will get. Either die should be some semicircular die, the semicircular shape can be obtained. Okay, so like that, what are the shape? If it is a some hexagonal shape, so similarly some hexagonal shape of component can be produced. So like that, any variety of components, any type of component or shape of the die or tool, it can be reshaped as per the requirement. And here another important term would like to discuss. There will be preheating is very important. It is a very important process of the metal which softens the structure of the metal. So before going to drop the ram and etc., we should preheat the metal which can soften the structure of the metal. So if you are, because it is a hot working process or hot forging process, almost the metal or material can be heated to above its recrystalline temperature, then only can able to change, while the metal can be softened, and so that little application of the pressure also it can change it. The variety of shapes is square or rectangular or semicircular or elliptical or polygonal shapes can be obtained easily, and this means that it can be deformed in a some controlled manner into the desired shape. Obviously, while drop forging, another important thing I would like to add, suddenly the dropping of the some rams, some machines, suddenly with that force automatically it can be changes in the shape. If it is square means enlarging, rectangular becomes circular means some elliptical shape can be obtained. So that is why this is the best need and usage of the drop forging. Whenever the components like what you call spanners, connecting rods, and adjustable wrenches, all these things under. So even spanners, okay. Spanners can made up of this drop forging process. Okay, so this is what about there is a need and usage of the drop forging. Even traditional 4000 BC itself, but whatever the requirement, either you wanted some screwdriver, some what you call some adjustable wrenches. So all these can be made up of this drop forging process. Look at there is a classification of drop forging. Classification of drop forging mainly. So there are 6 different type of classification of the drop forging. The first and foremost thing is the seamless rolled ring forging and open die forging, cold forging, hot forging, closed die forging, and radial forging. These are the some different 6 different types of classification of drop forging. There are basically 3 methods or the process to make a forged part. So mainly it has an impression die forging. The first one, second one is cold forging, and third important thing is open die forging, and last but not least the seamless rolling ring forging. Seamless rolling ring forging. So you can see the diagram itself. It is a self-explanatory. How we will perform this drop forging process with the variety of classification. The first one is seamless rolled ring forging. So you can see there will be one cylinder and there will be one roller, and how we can able to fix it with both the workpiece in a proper manner, so that you can able to perform better in the seamless rolled uh, ring forging. And coming to this open die forging, everybody know that we can open to the atmosphere. Even there is waste is also can be eliminated. And obviously in this open die forging, high dimensional accuracy it is difficult to maintain. High dimensional accuracy it is very difficult to maintain. And as per the cold forging is concerned. So whenever that what you call a tablet or cold forging means some tablet manufacturer, and they should have some patented thing also. So once I have to, they know the formula, they can easily manufacture the some capsules and medical thing equipment very easily. That is what about the open die forging. Cold die forging in the sense whenever it can be there is no heat at all at the material, and you can able to perform what are the shape and size can be easily performed by cold forging process. Okay, and coming to this hot forging. So in general, the term hot forging can be defined as it is the process of the heating the metal above its recrystallization temperature. We'll call it as a hot working. In that hot forging means whatever the raw material can be heated to the required temperature in order to change its the microstructure, and the recrystallization takes place. So during that time only it can be able to perform better for a hot forging technique also. And you can see if you do it this in a some 3D, some what you call some ANSYS ANSYS software, what will happen? It can able to change the length can be increased, diameter can be reduced. So that's what. And when you go for the closed die forging, in open die forging, it is very difficult to maintain the good dimensional accuracy. Obviously, that method cannot be referred and cannot be you know the things, and we should able to somewhat uh, uh, important to do this type of process also. Okay, and even closed die forging means there will be a workpiece inside that mold or die, so that some force and pressure should be applied. What are the shape of that die, bottom and top die? The same shape can be applied effectively in this cold die forging. And last but not least, radial forging. The term radial forging can be defined as you can able to fix up the workpiece like semi-automated and fully automated also. Then it can rotate. Some radial forging is required. They have to rotate and have a certain chances of doing this radial forging technique. So there are basically three methods to make a forged component or forged part. One is the cold forging process, open die forging, and seamless rolled ring forging process. Seamless rolled ring forging process. Okay, this is why very importance of the classification of the draw forging process. Almost all any one application which comes under the six different type of classification only. Okay, so that is why there are basically three methods or process to make a forged part. The first and interesting is the die forging. Okay, impression die forging. Second one is called the closed forging. Closed forging. Third important thing is open die forging, and finally the seamless rolled ring forging process. Okay, so this is what about the classification of draw forging. So coming to these advantages, draw forging, advantages, limitations, and application of this forging, draw forging technique. So look at it is an appreciable for a student can able to study all the some basic important concept of the uh, draw forging. Okay, and let us see the production efficiency is very higher in this case. Production efficiency is higher than the other process. Complex shaped metal parts can be forged with this process. Complex shaped metal parts can be forged with this process. The distribution of the metal flow line is more reasonable. So the distribution of the metal flow line is more reasonable. Okay, and final point is the size of the drop forging is accurate. The size of the drop forging is inaccurate. We can also achieve the better surface quality and what you call the smaller machining allowances with the practical approach. Okay, so this is what about the basic importance of the draw forging. This is an advantages. Okay, now look at now what are the applications in draw forging. So whenever can you think about in this manufacturing process, especially this especially the draw forging process, where you can produce the construction parts for missions such as planes and vehicles also. Okay, planes and vehicles also, and most probably the draw forging which is mainly restricted. It is a mainly restricted to produce the tools such as wrenches, hammers. You can see how they can able to depute these what you call the wrenches and cutting pliers and hammers are most widely used and developed in the draw forging process. Okay, this is what about the main important of advantages, limitations, and applications of the draw forging process, where it can be able to perform better in this type of applications of the draw forging technique. Okay, so in this video, majorly I am focusing on what is the introduction to draw forging and what is the distinguish between the forging hammers, that is different type of hammers that what you call the annual about the annual workpiece with the required temperature, and the ram is suddenly dropped together in order to change it, the shape and size only. Okay, so this is what about the forging hammer, and this is the need and usage of the draw forging and the classification of draw forging. So mainly here one point I would like to add, there are basically three methods or processes to make a forged part. Why? Because there are open die forging, okay, and impression die forging, cold forging, open die forging, seamless rolling ring forge. All these some of the few methods where you can able to get where you can able to get perform the classification of this draw forging technique. Okay. So now let us see these are the some few advantages of forging, draw forging technique. And the first point is the production efficiency is very high. So in any organization, mainly the efficiency to be determined. So efficiency in the sense ratio of the efficiency is output by input. How we can able to perform the efficiency, production of efficiencies will be higher. So in order to have some fundamental concept. And here one thing is complex shaped metal parts can be forged with this process. Some complex shaped metal parts can be forged with this process, and distribution of the metal flow line is very reasonable. Distribution of some metal flow line is most reasonable. And finally, this size of the drop forging is accurate. We can achieve the better surface quality and smaller machining allowance. Smaller machining allowance. Okay, so these are the some different type of applications of what you call draw forging. So you can see the screwdriver, how the what you call spanners with the different sizes also can be easily done with this process. Okay, and some different type of cutting pliers also can be used to develop efficiently. So this is what about the importance of the draw forging. Whenever whenever a student wanted to understand clearly, need not write the three-dimensional figure. A simple line diagram where you can able to measure or mention the where is the lower die, where is the upper die, where you can keep the work pieces, what is the facilities are required, and what are the important to done a fabricated thing, and you can able to do in a better action in this draw forging technique. Okay. And coming to this program hammer, so this forging hammer means it is also similar to earlier one, that is a ram, what you call annual and ram, the same, the distance, what you call that liner guide will impact on this putting suddenly on the ram. Obviously, here that upper die work with the lower die. There is the simple manufacturing process where you can perform better in this case. And this is what some high end, high capacity or high tonnage of the component can be produced by this draw forging technique. And it is a manufacturing or forging process whereby hammer is lifted and then dropped into the some heated piece of the metal to reshape it into a shape of the die. Okay, shape of the die or tool. So the preheating of the metal softens, preheat of the metal softens, and structure of the metal can be improved better. So this means it can be deformed in an uncontrolled manner into the desired shape. So this is what about the need and usage of the draw forging. So look at these are the some few classification of draw forging. The without, so every day when you ask somebody questions, so what is the forging technique? Obviously, you need to have some small opening or die whenever it can be rotated, and you can able to perform in a better in the usage of the cold forging, open die forging, and seamless to do roll for what you call forging. Okay, so the first one is seamless rolled ring forging, hat forging process, and open die forging, closed die forging. Obviously, so this open die and the closed die, when you wanted to have some exact dimension, say without air gap also will be there, then only they can go for the open die forging, and similarly the cold forging and other radial forging. Radial, when you draw a line radially, okay, performing together, how you can able to perform some radial line in order to have some good impact on this classification of the draw forging process. So these are the some few advantages of draw forging. Draw forging advantage, the production efficiency is very higher. Production efficiency is very very higher. Some complex shapes and distribution of the metal flow line is more important. Okay, and the size of the drop forging is accurate, we can also achieve the better surface quality. It is very important. It can achieve better, what you call better surface quality and smaller machining allowances. Already I have studied in detail about the allowances. Allowance, all solids, all metals all shrink except bismuth. So obviously it cannot remove, and wherever the size of the drop filling is adequate, we can also achieve the better surface quality and smaller machining allowance. Okay, so these are the some active applications of the forging technique, drop forging technique. Thank you, the students. I hope you can understand clearly about this drop forging. What are the important uses of this drop forging, and how the components like the spanner and wrench, adjustable wrench, can be made up of this process. Okay, so thank you very much for your patience and studying of the subject. So now another topic is roll forging. What is meant by roll forging?
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.